Virginia, and to Ezio for this invitation to participate in this DESIS philosophy talks about cities. Cities, of course, is a hugely important topic today for many reasons, because of planetary urbanization, because of the huge amount of resources used by cities, because cities are central to the ecological crisis. But cities are also central to what we could call a civilizational crisis or an ontological crisis, a crisis in the mode of existence, because cities in many ways have been built against nature on the one hand, against the natural environments, but at the exclusion of nature, and also the exclusion of the countryside and the exclusion of the peasant modes of being. So re-earthing the city in many ways refers to the integration of nature and other ways of being, closer perhaps to the ways of being in interrelation that peasants maintain throughout history into the city. So mainstream solutions are not a solution. Smart cities, competitive cities are just basically more of the same. Re-earthing the city in this context emerges as a very interesting proposal. It's connected to two trends, especially in urban geography. The first trend is seeing cities as assemblages of humans and non-humans. And the second trend, which is connected to the first one, obviously, is what is called a relational term in urban studies, which seeks to investigate how cities are continuously being made and remade by its inhabitants, especially in the popular neighborhoods in the large cities of the global south. There is an active remaking of the cities that is always going on that we have to pay attention to. So in ontological terms, we could say that cities are a particular mode of existence. And that particular mode of existence is what the concept of re-earthing tries to get at. On the one hand, we have concepts such as re-earthing. There's two other concepts that I like to use. Urbanization, rural urbanization, sort of the new integration between country and city. The third concept is the concept of ontological retrofitting, or a retrofitting of cities to allow for that ontological connection, reconnection between cities and nature, between humans and nature in the cities. And this all depends on the fact that we need to acknowledge the radical interdependence of everything that exists, that the current civilizational model, which is at the source of the planetary crisis that we're living, has been built or depends on the separation between humans and non-humans. In particular, that's one of the most fundamental separations. And that today we need to foster or promote a new kind of integration between nature and humans, between humans and non-humans, and in this case, between city and nature. Specifically, in terms of design, I think there are a number of trends that are very interesting in this regard. We have the trend that is called biophilic city planning and design, which precisely is intended to reconnect cities and nature and humans and nature in the cities. The basic concepts is design with nature or design nature back in the city, as opposed to just design with nature, which would be more the conventional, the greener the cities or green city planning and so forth. I think, for instance, the super blocks in Barcelona that Ezio, I know, has been working on could be an example of this, especially if they bring into the picture more explicitly the question of the reintegration of the city. And another proposal, which is by a Colombian architect actually, is that of bringing or working towards a new fusion between country and city. And he has developed an entire proposal for doing that, a architectonical landscape and urban design proposal that is centered on the integration between food production and the apartment buildings in which most people live. So to summarize, re-earthing the city refers to a new philosophy of design that is based on the radical interdependence of everything that exists. It tries to remedy the civilizational anomaly of building cities against nature and against the countryside, and propends for a new kind of integration between all of them. Thank you. Um, I like to say a few things about care. Well, first of all, I think care is a concept that points at a new mode of being, of existing in the age of the Anthropocene and planetary crisis. It has a long intellectual genealogy that we cannot discuss here today. Feminist scholarship has been particularly important in this genealogy, but today it is re-emerging as part of an ensemble of concepts that includes concepts like repairing and mending and refashioning and reusing and repurposing and care and healing. And of course, this is because we are destroying the web of life, the web of interdependencies that make up life and that make up the place in which we live. There's a social history to this. The social history, to me, is important to point out because for most of human history, humans have actually cared and repaired for that web of interdependencies, for their places and their localities. And these began to be lost. This ethics of care and repair begins to be lost with the advent of modernity because of the invention that modernity made of needs and scarcity and individual and markets and one single truth, one single real, and so forth. So that we have this, what we call today, a toxic loop, which is this ensemble of concepts within which we all live, including again the individual and needs and scarcity and so forth and markets. And that has made an ethics and a politics of care impossible today. So we have to return to that ethics. Waste, Ivan Illich, for instance, and Sigmund Bauman have talked about how waste is so central to modernity. Sigmund Bauman, for instance, says that where there is design, there is waste. So that waste makes impossible an ontology of care. So to go back to that kind of ontology means to question and replace the ontology of separation with which modernity has been built, that ontology that assumes that every single entity or object has an intrinsic existence by itself and that it doesn't really depend on that interdependence, the network of interdependencies in which it is enmeshed. But if we adopt a new paradigm of reality, because we're talking about a new paradigm of reality, which is the paradigm of radical interdependence and relationality, then we have to realize that the only ethics and politics possible, we really, really accept at a very profound level the fact that life is interdependence through and through, then the only consequence or implication of that is that we really have to develop an ethics of care and a politics of care. Now, this shift in vision, in my mind, is essential for healing our ecosystems, our cities, our ecologies, our lives, our bodies, etc., etc. In terms of design, and to conclude these brief remarks on care, I think one could actually define design as that praxis that enables us to heal the web of life, to care for the web of life in a manner that is effective and that is sustainable or sustaining, that sustain that web of interdependencies. And so that we can accomplish a shift from these toxic loops of existence, again based on separation, individuality, markets, and so forth, to a more healing ethics of existence in which precisely care emerges as a central practice for design and for everything that we do. I find there is a profound ethics and politics of care, for instance, in the struggles of many groups in the world today in defense of the territories and the places against extractive operations, against large-scale mining and plantations and so forth, against this very destructive model of development that we have today at present. We also find that ethics of care and design in proposals such as Ezio Manzini's proposals for that he sees as emerging from the new communities that have been established today, in terms of collaborative organizations and in terms of transformative social innovation. I think all of that speaks to me of the coming into being of care as both a model for existing in a different way, and also of designing and making in a different way as well. Thank you.